Everyone wants to manifest better, love deeper, live freer and more abundantly. But the truth is, you can meditate, you can do your journaling, you can visualize all day long and do all of the right methods and techniques and still stay stuck. Because until you master emotional regulation in order to master life, your emotions will keep hijacking your future and you keep recreating your past on a loop constantly, every single day. If you cannot hold your emotions, you won't be able to hold your future vision either. Okay? There's one thing no one wants to say out loud, and it's that most people, meaning about 95% of our world's population, are emotionally immature. Not because they're bad people, not because they're selfish or cold or whatever, but because no one taught them how to feel, how to sit with the storm inside of their chest, inside of their gut, inside of their head, how to hold space for the intensity of their own experiences without numbing it, without running from it, without overthinking it, without spiraling or projecting it onto everyone around them. You need to understand that you cannot grow into your highest self or your future vision, the future life that you want, or the life that you want right now, better said, while still living inside the same emotional patterns that you have developed as a child, or that you have developed during your teenage years, or even just developed during your adult life. You cannot evolve into the life you want if you never learned how to regulate what's happening inside of your own body first. And emotional regulation, as woo woo as it sounds, it's not about being zen all the time, okay? It's not about pretending that you're okay and everything's fine and everything's high vibe. It isn't about slapping a smile over your rage and calling it progress, okay? It's not about faking that. It isn't about wearing your crystals to help you be regulated. It's not being love and light 24/7 or sounding spiritual online while you're spiraling behind closed doors. Emotional regulation is a skill, and it's a skill that has to be trained, that has to be embodied, and that has to be rehearsed. Not once, but again and again and again and again. Until your nervous system learns that you are safe enough to not spiral, safe enough to not shut down again, that you're safe enough to feel without becoming the feeling, okay, without losing control over the feeling. You need to understand that you're safe enough to hold yourself. And it is the art of creating enough safety inside of your own body to experience the full spectrum of your humanity, which are your emotions, without letting them hijack your entire life. Okay? And I have the Emotional Alchemy Hub as a playlist on YouTube here, where I weekly post videos on how to alchemize your emotions, meaning how to transform your emotions. So go and check that out if you haven't already. But for now, we're talking about mastering emotional regulation in this video. Because again, if you cannot regulate your emotions, then your life will always be ruled by them. You'll keep making decisions based on your triggers rather than your actual truth, rather than what you actually think, rather than what you actually want. So you'll keep sabotaging good things that come into your life simply because you're uncomfortable with stability. So you will keep giving away your power, outsourcing your power to other people's behaviors and thoughts, waiting for them to change so you can feel okay again. You'll think that you're manifesting, but really you're emotionally just time traveling. You're just completely distracted. You're just gone, right? You're stuck in fear loops, shame spirals, grief, nervous system shutdowns, and trauma driven habits that don't actually match the version that you actually want to be, that you claim that you want. And no matter how many vision boards that you create or affirmations that you repeat, your energy will always default back to the emotional state that you have memorized the most. So let me ask you something very real. When something doesn't go your way, Do you collapse emotionally and start telling yourself you're a failure? When someone triggers you, do you spiral into old stories that were built in your childhood or teenage years or whenever, convinced that you're being abandoned or rejected? When your partner doesn't respond how you wanted it, do you default into defensiveness, into shutting down, into weaponizing your silence, into over explaining? When something doesn't go your way, or someone, let's say, crosses you, does you wrong, does your mind end up shaming yourself and narrating the story of, it's always me, why always me? It's never anybody else, it's always me. Because these aren't just conscious choices. All of your responses to these are learned responses. Your nervous system learned them a long time ago to keep you safe at some point in time. Or it thought it was keeping you safe at that point in time. But once kept you safe as a child or as a teenager, is now keeping you stuck as an adult. And there is no one to blame but yourself for remaining in those patterns, right? It doesn't matter where they came from. It's a great explanation, and maybe you feel a little more closure for it, for knowing it, but it's not an excuse. You cannot blame anyone but yourself for continuing them, for still using them as your excuse, for still hiding behind them. Most people don't realize that their entire personality is an emotional regulation strategy. The overachiever, that's someone who learned they needed to perform to feel safe. You're a people pleaser? Okay, you're someone who fears abandonment so deeply that you betray yourself before someone else can. And I've been the biggest people pleaser because I never felt safe within myself. Because I was so insecure, because I was so scared of being abandoned and being alone. Until I changed that. You're a perfectionist? Okay, you're someone who believes mistakes are dangerous because your nervous system equals imperfection with punishment. You're an avoidant? Okay, you are someone who never felt emotionally held and emotionally safe, so now you don't even hold yourself. You don't even know how to hold yourself, so you keep running away, hence you're being avoidant. But none of these behaviors make you bad. Okay, you're not a bad human. You don't have bad intentions, hopefully. But they do keep you small. They do keep you fake. They do keep you being a liar. You think you're being logical, but really you're just being reactive. You think you're choosing consciously, but really you're just repeating what your nervous system memorized decades ago. You're acting out of autopilot. That's not necessarily a good thing. And let's be clear, emotional regulation isn't about denying your pain or suppressing your emotions, right? It's the complete opposite. It's about creating enough stability and self-trust inside of your body to actually feel the full range of what is happening around you or within you without being consumed by it, without letting it take over control. It's learning to observe your internal state just with honesty and precision, okay? Holding up the mirror to yourself without letting it dictate your behavior. It's being able to say, this feeling is moving through me right now. This is what I'm feeling right now. This is what this situation caused me to feel. This is what your actions made me feel. This is what this situation makes me feel. Instead of, this feeling is who I am. This is who I am. I always feel this way. Because until you can alchemize your emotions, in other words, until you can separate your identity from your emotions, you will always be enslaved by your own reactions. It will never do you any good. The reason that this matters so much is because your emotions are not neutral. right? They are energetic instructions. They are biochemical signals that influence your thoughts, your decisions, your posture, your tone of voice, your facial expressions, your relationships, your habits, and even your manifestations. Everything you can think of hangs together with it. You are always broadcasting your emotional state, not just to others, but into the quantum field if we're talking about manifestation. The universe, God, again, whatever you want to label it, doesn't respond to what you post online. It doesn't respond to what you wish for every once in a while. It responds to the frequency that you live in consistently, daily. And if that frequency is dysregulation, which is most of people's default state, if it's chaos, shame, scarcity, or fear, then that's what you will keep attracting. No matter how badly you want something different, your life will always remain mediocre because all you're sending out is mediocrity. This is why nervous system regulation is a non-negotiable if you want to live a life of self-leadership, of peace, of just being your best self, of being empowered, being in power, being in control. No matter what situation you're in, whether you want to be a CEO, whether you just want to have a better placement in your 9 to 5, whether you just want to be a better student, whether you just want to be a better person overall. It doesn't matter. Because when you're dysregulated, you cannot access higher thoughts. You cannot stay grounded in your goals. You cannot make decisions from your actual truth because you're so blinded. All you can do is survive. That's it. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Those aren't emotions. They are your survival responses that keep being triggered. They're signals that your body doesn't feel safe enough to be fully yourself, to be fully present, to keep your body working. Because when you're constantly in fight or flight mode, your body is operating in lack because it's so focused on survival that it shuts down, that it neglects operating within other systems. And a body that doesn't feel safe will always sabotage opportunities for growth, for health. Not because you're being weak, but because your nervous system has confused expansion with danger, because it's new territory, it's unfamiliar, so it poses as a risk. I need you to ask yourself this and answer it honestly, okay? Not with your excuses. Be disgustingly honest. How often are you making decisions from your body that doesn't feel safe? How many times are you sabotaging opportunities because your emotions are screaming louder than your vision? Take pen and paper and actually respond to these questions. How many times are you sabotaging opportunities because your emotions are screaming louder than your vision, because your emotions are getting in the way? How often do you betray your peace for the adrenaline of chaos? Because calm just feels unfamiliar to you. How many times do you choose the passion and the magic in a situation, in a dynamic, because a healthy relationship feels boring to you and that other stuff is more fun? How much of your identity is just a series of trauma-driven responses that you've never questioned because they feel like home? You're familiar with them, right? It's all you know, it's comfortable. How long will you keep wearing the mask of being a performer and being a faker and being a people pleaser just to feel comfortable in your own skin, just to make others feel comfortable? Just so you don't have to actually face yourself. And let me be brutally honest here. You don't need more mindset work. You don't need another podcast episode. You don't need to read 25 more books just because someone recommended it and it changed their life. You need to feel what you've never felt. You need to sit with what you've always run from. You need to face what you've been lying about, not just to others, but to yourself. You need to learn how to anchor your body in the middle of an emotional storm. Okay, in the middle of dysregulation, you need to know how to bring your body back to baseline. You need to know how to bring yourself back into the present moment. Because you become the one who knows how to handle these situations. Okay, it's gonna be hard in the beginning, but the more you do it, the more consistent you are with it, with bringing yourself back into the present moment and in the middle of chaos, in the middle of dysregulation, in the middle of uncomfortability. That's when you become someone who can be respected. That's when you become someone who can weather any storm. That's when you become someone who can handle any kind of situation because you are able to regulate yourself. When you master emotional regulation, everything changes. So much in your life changes instantly. You stop being reactive and you start responding. You stop spiraling into different stories and made up narratives and all of these made up scenarios in advance in your head, and you actually start holding space for actual facts and more truth, your truth. You stop spiraling and collapsing when things get hard. You stop running away from them, and you actually start showing up for yourself, for like someone who actually believes in her future and respects herself. You become the one who doesn't just talk about self-worth and self-love and self-leadership and self-trust, self-belief, all the things, but actually embodies it. That is where real confidence comes from. That's real self-leadership. That's real self-mastery. Because you cannot embody your highest self while being ruled by the most unhealed parts of you. You cannot hold the relationship, the business, the success, the job, the freedom, the friendships, the whatever you crave, if you cannot hold yourself in simple moments of discomfort, right? If you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, then you will keep sabotaging the very things that you say you want, that you crave, simply because they don't feel safe to your body right now. And they keep overwhelming you right now. So this is your wake-up call. Start regulating your emotions like your life depends on it. Not because you're weak and cannot handle it, but simply because your nervous system has been carrying you through survival long enough, because it has been your default state long enough, and it's just time to change that. It's your job to teach it how to live.